There we go.
Alright, remember back when we were all kids and we played Follow the Leader? Well, you always had to have a leader, otherwise there'd be no point in the game. It'd just be a bunch of people standing around doing absolutely nothing, just standing there looking like fools. So this reminds me of a quote that I got, and it's from the Bible. If the blind lead the blind, both shall fall into the ditch. So basically what this is saying is, you can't just, not everyone can just go out there and be thrown into things and have no clue what they're doing. They have to have some kind of reference, whether it be from TV, internet, seeing another person. You know, there's multiple ways that people can learn things from other people. So basically it's saying that you have to have some kind of guideline to be able to succeed in a more reasonable manner, where compared to you can get thrown into something and have no clue what you're doing. You're obviously going to learn eventually, but you're going to have to learn that by yourself and have, you know, it takes more time than for someone who is, you know, saw someone else do something and they kind of, oh, well, they did this, so I'm going to try and do it just like that, because it kind of expedites the fact of, well, you don't have to figure out for yourself. So some examples that you can do that is like when you're learning a sport. For me, volleyball. I remember watching when my sister was playing, and you know, watching her how to do things and that kind of stuff. And so you like, oh, well, this is how it's supposed to look, or this is what it's supposed to do. And you know, you learn to a certain extent by watching, but until you kind of get that one-on-one time with like a coach or someone else that, you know, you get that actual one-on-one time, not just watching, but actually, oh, well, no, you're doing this wrong, the angle's wrong, or that kind of stuff. You know, you further advance your learning skills by having that other person to help motivate you and help expand your knowledge of how to do those, you know, different kind of things. Another thing would be like in video games, or you know, in just any kind of board game. You know, say a strategy game. I like to play Risk. And it's basically, those who don't know what that is, it's basically you're trying to conquer over the world. There's all the continents, and you have these little guys. Well, I learned from one of my friends, stack everyone in Australia. It's an island, and there's only one way to get there. So you stack as many people in that one area, and they can't get to you. And eventually you win the game because of it. So basically, I learned that from my friend. Otherwise, I would have just kept putting my, you know, my little men all over the board, not knowing what I'm doing, trying to, you know, oh, well, they're not over there, so I'll go over here. It's, you know, it's a learning process that everyone has to go through. Another thing would be just interacting with people. When we were all little kids, you know, we would tend to just say whatever comes to our mind, you know, whether it offended someone, hurt someone's feeling, anything like that. We just say what comes to our mind. When you learn that from other people and their reactions, that kind of stuff, that you can't always do that. You can't just speak freely, you know, you hurt people, and it's definitely not socially acceptable to do that kind of thing. And it's something you learn from your parents, from your friends, anyone that you interact with, manager, you know, a teacher. It just depends, even your friends. So it's just something that it's a constant learning experience that we all have to go through. So looking back, you know, you always say, okay, well, I learned this from this person, and you know, you have to really thank those people that have taught you what you've learned today. And just, you know, remember back when there's no leader, there's no game. Thank you.
All right, Chris, I like the visualization that you had as your attention device, and there's a good transition to what the topic was. I think you need to set up the structure a little bit more. It was organized internally, but there's not really a preview of what's coming up. Sometimes your examples seem to fit the theme that you're talking about. Sometimes you just seem to be going a little bit off the topic. You're talking about your example without explaining how it connects to the point that you were trying to make originally. On the presentation issues, you're easy to hear. There's good variety in your voice. I thought it was very fluent while you were speaking. Your gestures, for the most part, look like they're purposeful, and you're very animated while you're speaking. A couple of times early on, it seemed like you had a couple of gestures that were sort of repetitive, but the longer you were up there, the more they seemed like they were reflections of what you were talking about, and not just a little bit of anxiety coming out. So I thought that ended up going pretty well. The facial expression is the same sort of thing. Your eye contact is generally very solid. You're usually looking out toward us and usually engaging us while you're talking to us as well. The body movements, there were one or two of those spots where it seemed like you were kind of leaning over, and it was subtle looking at the page next to you or the notes down on the side, but for the most part it was not a problem. And I think that the longer you went, the less noticeable those kinds of things were, and I thought you found a pretty effective exit line. Don't forget to come back to the point that you're making in the speech, and you did okay on that. All right, thank you.